This is the Tom Digby Tales, and I'm your host, Shannon Evans. I write about a small town in northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and sometimes I write about the rest of the state. Tonight's episode is going to be very interesting. Um, I've been working on this expose on the Columbus Housing Authority and the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization, which is their nonprofit arm, and how complicated this is and what little lack of what little transparency the organization has. So this is titled Unraveling Housing Authority Financial Mysteries. So we're going to look at these routine property transactions they had, and I'm going to look at a labyrinth of potential financial irregularities. So I want to welcome you to my investigative podcast series that I'm in the middle of, in between my history episodes, because this will be history one day. So we're going to dig into these complex financial questions, and I just have questions. I don't have any answers, and I'm hoping someone else does have answers. But it's kind of fascinating, and it's also troubling what the financial irregularities look like, especially considering that the executive director is allegedly an accountant because he's also serving in the role of comptroller, as well as accountant, as well as executive director. So, uh, I don't understand how the books look so crappy, pardon my language, if he's an accountant. It just doesn't add up. Plus, they have an accountant that they have a CPA, and they have someone who does their audit. So I have requested the audits, and hopefully I'll have those soon. But let's get to the background of the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization. First of all, it was established, I think, approximately 15 years ago, and it was done to provide affordable housing solutions for low-income families. But I think it deserves some intense financial scrutiny, especially based on what I found in the 990s, or what was missing in the 990s, and some of the exposure that I found there in how they operate, how they declare and not declare things. So you too can go look at the 990s, or you can go listen to one of my earlier podcast episodes. So the housing program with this Columbus Community Housing Development Organization has a piece of property that had been an orphanage that had newer cottages on it. Newer meaning they were built in the 90s, 80s, and late 80s, early 90s, and 2000s. And those cottages were sitting empty because the orphanage had moved all the children north to, I believe, DeSoto County. And so this piece of property is a beautiful piece of property. It's got a gym. It's got it has an old Victorian building that was the original orphanage. It has some houses on it. It has the cottages. It has a baseball field. It has a barn. It has farm potential. It's got lots of land. And so, it's a beautiful piece of property. Well, the housing development is using part of it. They have a program, an after-school program and a summer program for children. Great program run by a great lady, with lots of experience. They have these homes that they're renting out. They were trying to run a senior living facility, and that didn't work out, so they got out of that. And then they bought up a bunch of land in another neighborhood north of town called North Haven Woods, and they built some low-income little garden homes, cottages. They're cute. They're not very large. They don't have a garage. They have a carport. They are 2-bedroom, I think, maybe 3 at most. But they're very modest homes, but in a very nice neighborhood. The neighbors were a bit concerned because they felt it might bring down the value of their homes, and there was some tension. But basically, the program was designed as a credit rebuilding initiative, and it was targeted to low-income families with limited financial resources and with bad credit. So it was a promised pathway to home ownership. And the idea was that they would teach the families that lived in these cottages they built, these homes, these standalone homes in a neighborhood, how to rebuild their credit. and they would eventually own the homes. Well, that program collapsed, died, went away. I believe it was funded by HUD. And so now the Columbus Housing Authority is saddled with these homes. So they, at one point, started to sell them. And so they put they put several of them on the market, two of them sold, and then they continued to rent the other homes. The homes that they sold were not in that HUD program. They were just to individuals who applied and they bought their homes. And so, um, I don't know exactly what happened to the original low income housing program. I don't, it is to my knowledge that no one who bought the homes, the two people that bought the homes, did not get any support from the housing authority or uh, HUD, or other than they applied for loans and they purchased their homes. Um, but the program seems to have completely disappeared. And so the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization still has this series of homes. So now I'm going to show you where they are. So let me bear with me while I share my screen. And there we go. Let me share my screen. We're back to Zoom. This is a map that is provided by the Lowndes County tax assessor. And so it tells me who owns what. So this is a piece of property we're going to talk about right now. I'm going to show it to you. It's this one right here. This is Highway 45. You enter into the neighborhood over here. This road goes behind, these are all businesses. This road goes all the way back down here and eventually goes where you can get on the road that goes to the Lock and Dam. But this is a small little neighborhood. And so the Columbus Housing Authority owns several pieces of property back through here. Hang on, I'll find one. There we go. There's one the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization owns, but they purchased this land or these homes or the properties from an organization called J5 someone who worked with J5. His name was Jabari Edwards. And he had gotten into this HUD program, and they were going to build these properties, these homes, for low income and reduced income families. And they had gotten the money through a grant, through a program. So it looks like quite a few of them had sold, except for these two. So these three parcels right here. But this is the parcel in question. Now, it hasn't been changed over yet, but this house, this property, and this home sold on October 28th. It's this property right here. It sold on October 28th to a woman, and I'm going to protect her name because she doesn't have anything to do with this. But this is her home, and she purchased it. And let's see if I can get you a street view of this home. There we go. This is the home, and they look pretty. They're pretty nice homes. Look, they're just a little house. Got a little carport, little storage room, and it's just a nice little garden style home. But this woman purchased this home. Now, what I do know is that when she purchased this home was in October 28th of 2024. It was listed in the deed book. So it's in book 2024, page 8252, deed 1020, that was signed on October 28th, 2024, at 3:39 in the afternoon. Now, what's interesting to see is that there's only one signature from the Columbus Housing Authority, and normally it takes two for their documentation. Usually when an organization sells something, they have the executive director and either the president or the vice president or the treasurer sign. They don't have a treasurer. They have an executive director, and they have a president and a vice president. But as you can see right here, it's only Mr. Guthrie who's signed this. Now, I wouldn't be making a big deal out of this, except I know that the house was sold for more than $123,000. What we don't know is what happened to that money. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me show you some board minutes. So in the board minutes, they have these financials. And so when I track the financials from October going forward, because the October financials are really the September financials, these numbers are not changing in any way that signify that they got a portion of this money or all of this money. So I presume they still have a note that they're paying off. So it's not clear to me where uh, they wouldn't normally, as explained to me by a couple of realtors and a lender, they do not take, when you make a sale, they don't take all the money and apply it to, if you have multiple pieces of property that are in the same note, they don't take all the money and apply it to the note. They take a percentage. It could be 50%, it could be 75%. But what I don't see is that this money changed in a significant way that would indicate that that there wasn't where that money went. Now, I'm not saying anything went wrong. I'm just saying I can't find it. So let's go back. That was what created some questions for me. And like I said, they're just questions. What happened to the money from the first home that sold? Now, I'm not sure which one was the first home. I would have to do more research, but I do know about the house that sold in October. You know, the sale is not mentioned in any board minutes. Now, I understand that even though there are board minutes from the Columbus Housing Authority minutes that talk about them having meetings with the Columbus, I'm gonna call it CHDO, Columbus Community Housing Development Organization. There's no mention. Okay, so maybe the other meeting minutes do mention it, but where's the money? The money should be reflected somewhere. Now, while I don't have the financials that are the invoices and the detailed listings from the nonprofit, what I do have are those meeting minutes where they show the bank account balances. And the fact that they don't change in anything in any significant way gives me some red flags. So it shows me that there's not much documentation. It's very incomplete. The transaction patterns, as I have shown you in previous episodes, about them bouncing money around to cover missing money or not missing, but imbalances in their overdrawn accounts makes me really suspicious of these transaction patterns. You know, these financial anomalies they include missing transaction records, unexplained fund transfers, and a lack of standard financial oversight. So that makes me start asking questions about financial transparency. So where did the sale money go? It could be very well in one of those accounts, but I can't see it. Could have gone to the checking account. I can't see it. Why are the bank account totals not reflecting this significant transaction? If it was 120,000 plus, but more likely it was a fractional part. So it still would be a significant transaction. This raises the question of potential financial misconduct. It doesn't mean it did happen, but it is very messy accounting practices. So I have some forensic accounting concerns. There's some discrepancies in the bank account reconciliations that we've seen in the books that I can see. There's an absence of standard financial documentation. There's a potential for misappropriation of public funds. how do we trace the sale proceeds? How do we identify who the decision makers are? How do we understand what are the transaction motivations here? This makes me question a lot of things. So I have some very critical questions to ask. What's the procedural integrity of this place? Who authorized these property sales? I understand the board authorized the sale, but what internal approval processes were in place once the offer was made on the house? Did they bring it back to the board? Was there a special meeting called? Why was grade 3 the only person who signed? Where did the money go? Where are the complete financial records? And how were sale proceeds documented? Will they be on the new 990 that should be filed sooner than later? What are the legal implications? Are these potential violations of housing authority regulations? Is this a possible breach of fiduciary responsibilities by the organization? Transparency isn't just a buzzword. It's a fundamental requirement in managing public monies, even if you're a nonprofit. And these questions do demand answers. In the realm of public housing, every dollar represents a promise to vulnerable communities. And when that promise is compromised, we have to demand absolute transparency and accountability. I will be doing more public records requests. You can do them too. I'm going to ask for the financial audits. I've already requested them. I just have to go down and take a check for $45 roughly. I'm going to look through this financial documentation, and I'm going to call and ask for some clarifications from their board, and I'm going to start attending their board meetings. This podcast it is really just an investigative exploration of documented items. I want to raise critical questions, and I really want to promote institutional accountability because there isn't any with this institution to speak of. I'm not making definitive legal accusations because I just don't know. I don't have access to all the content. However, it does appear that the board for the Columbus Housing Authority, or at least a portion of the board, likes to cover things up or not ask questions. So I do have a lot of questions, and I really would like to see them explore how they can be more transparent. And I am really concerned because it seems to be that Mr. Grathery is their buddy and their friend, and he might be a nice guy. He's pretty generous. I've seen the credit card statements. He likes to take everybody out to dinner to the tune of, $700-800. We'll talk about that next. But honestly, if I were a board member, is he really worth going to jail over? Because if there is financial malfeasance and you as a board member are helping to subvert or to ignore your fiscal and fiduciary responsibilities, I hope you like wearing orange too, because I don't think most of that board would look very good in an orange jumpsuit, honestly. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that they really are holding him accountable and they're just not doing it in a public way. But it doesn't look that way. So I still have more mysteries to unravel where the Columbus Housing Authority and CHDO, the Columbus Community Housing Development Organization, are concerned. Well, that's it for today's broadcast. I will be back with an in-depth examination of the credit card and the amounts of monies that they're spending at the Columbus Housing Authority on travel and entertainment. In the meantime, this is Tom Bigby Tales. I'm Shannon Evans. Until next time.